Next up, we have DEG Mining. What a story these guys have got. The Managing Director, Glenn Jardine, joins us today to discuss the Hemi discovery in the Pilbara. Hey, Glenn, welcome to the Virtual Gold Conference. Over to you to tell us about this fabulous story.
Yeah, hi there, Kerry. Thank you for the invitation to present to the Australian Gold Conference. And hello to everyone who's watching today. It's my pleasure to be able to present on behalf of DEG about the Hemi discovery in the Pilbara region of Western Australia. Just quickly, our presentation will be on the platform. Please take note of the disclaimer regarding forward-looking statements. We will be making a couple during this presentation. I'd also like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land on which we work, and also pay respects to their elders, past, present, and emerging. A little bit of a snapshot of the company at the moment. We've got just under 1.3 billion shares on issue. Share price as of the start of the week was just under $1.60 and a market capitalisation of 1.7 billion. And cash at the end of December was just over $100 million Australian, which means we're well funded to continue with our programs. We've got a very experienced board. If you want more details on the board and their background, then I'd direct you to our website. Suffice to say that it's a really good experienced board for the project and for the company at the stage that it's at. Also, in terms of our management team, you'll have heard of Phil, Andy and Alan Neeshaw, who are our geologists who are instrumental in the discovery of Hemi. We've added to that team over the last 12 months with Peter Canterbury, our CFO, Bronwyn Campbell looking after community relations, and prior to Bronwyn, John Brocklesby, who's heading up our risk, health, safety and environment. And you'll see the company starting to build its capability more and more over the next 12 months in terms of its corporate governance, safety, environmental management, and also in terms of our community engagement. Okay, so moving on to the meat of the presentation, just want to let you in onto this slide here. The reason we've got these points listed out here is this is what we're using in terms of description of the project, in terms of discriminating ourselves from other deposits and other projects around Australia and around the world. So the first one there is that we're in a tier 1 jurisdiction, and the scale of the project is also tier 1. Because of that, we garner a high value per ounce of gold, and that's certainly justified on the basis of the mineralisation's very thick. It's near surface, it's got good grade continuity because it's a sulfide style of mineralisation. It's amenable to low cost, large scale, low strip ratio open pit mining. We've also been really cost effective in delineating resources at Hemi over the last 12 to 15 months. With 300,000 metres drilled in that period of time, of which about 50% would be a combined RC and diamond drilling. Independent of the Hemi discovery, as you may have known it, in terms of the 4 zones there, we've also made 2 new discoveries at Hemi in Jewson and Eagle. We put out announcements about them recently, and they're really good examples of how Hemi will just continue to grow. On top of that, we've got exploration potential around Hemi in the greater Hemi region, and also 150 kilometres of strike in the Pilbara, where we'll be able to find and delineate resources across that belt beyond what you see at Hemi.
Glenn, if I could just interrupt you for a moment there, you did say that this is one of the better discoveries. It's very unusual, but surely there's other shallow, open, pittable projects similar to this around the world. I mean,
We've looked for direct analogies, Kerry. We haven't been able to find any to this point in time. And when I go through some of the examples in the presentation, you'll see that the thickness of the mineralisation, the continuity and consistency of that mineralisation, because it's sulfide hosted, is something we haven't been able to find a direct analogy for. So it is quite unusual for the Pilbara and for Australia.
And I would like to point out to those of you, because we do have a lot of people listening today, some of whom do not know geology or any of that. So just for the newbies out there, 2 years ago, the view was that there was no gold in the Pilbara. Is that right, Glenn?
Yeah, that's pretty much right, especially in terms of basement gold, as the company's discovered. Hemi itself was only really discovered and announced in the form of RC drilling in February 2020, which is just over 12 months ago.
Amazing.
Okay, so I'll just move on, Kerry.
Yep.
So this is a plan view of Hemi with the 6 zones that have been discovered so far. And as I said, each zone is open and Hemi's open in all directions and also at depth. Significant upside remains beyond the maiden mineral resource that we'll announce in the middle of this year. And I think that's one of the key takeaways of the presentation is that we aim to meet the expectations that we've set the market for the resource at Hemi. But people need to realise that whatever that number is, there's plenty of potential and plenty of upside beyond that. We're also in a world-class jurisdiction in the Pilbara. We've got excellent infrastructure and we're only 60 kilometres south of Port Hedland. This is what I was speaking about earlier in this new intrusion style of mineralisation. This is a section through the Brolga zone at Hemi, which is just one zone there. And you can see some of the intersections there and just how amenable they are going to be to low strip ratio, low cost open pit mining. The drilling on this section is open at depth and we have drilling along strike, of course, but you can see the intervals there and they're just excellent thicknesses and excellent grades, near surface, sulfide hosted. This is a section running north-south through Hemi, and this gives you also another indication of scale. So this is running from Brolga south through Brolga, which was the section I showed you just before, the zone north of Brolga, Aquila, and then north of Aquila at Crow. You can see the potential for that to eventually be, one large open pit joining each of those zones together. And the distance between Brolga South and the north of Crow is approximately 2 kilometres. And we've got mineralisation down to around 500 metres and it's still open at depth. In terms of growth, it's been rapid and cost effective. I mentioned that earlier. Up until around September last year, we hadn't discovered Falcon. Falcon is now demonstrated to be 1 kilometre long and with mineralisation down to at least 500 metres. The intrusion that hosts Falcon is open further to the south and we're just starting to drill deeper into that intrusion now. But you can see Crow here, and to the west of Crow are the 2 new zones that have been recently discovered, Jewson and Eagle. We put an announcement out about Jewson and Eagle last week and also one earlier in January. Those 2 zones were only announced in January as having been discovered. Each of them are at least 600 metres in strike with Jewson having mineralisation nearly up to 1 kilometre. And we've only discovered them in January. Because they're near surface and thick, it just demonstrates we'll be able to delineate resources there very quickly and very cost effectively. And both of these zones are open further to the west, leading into Antwerp. And you see we've got anomalous intersections in intrusion and sediments to the west of Jewson and Eagle. Some excellent results there. And we'll just be sending the RC rig further west of these 2 zones here to see if we can delineate more resources out at Hemi.
How many rigs have you got on site at the moment, Glenn?
We've got 10 across the.
Oh my goodness.
The region. 9 of them are either in or immediately around Hemi. We've got 3 air core rigs, 4 RC rigs, and 3 diamond rigs. The RC rigs until recently have been doing a lot of infill drilling at Hemi. leading up to the resource. We're now freeing those rigs up a little bit to do extensional drilling in an aerial extent around Hemi. And we've got 3 diamond rigs operating on depth extents at Hemi, and they'll also move on to Jardine and Eagle shortly, where we've only just got RC drilling to relatively shallow depths.
That's a busy mine site.
Yeah, it is. It is. Yeah, it's very busy. So I mentioned Jardine and Eagle to the west of Hemi, leading into Antwerp. Scooby's another one that we've got an RC rig on at the moment. It's a really big intrusion target, 2 kilometres in strike and about 1 kilometre north-south. And we've got one RC rig there just chasing up some geochemical anomalism and an IP anomaly. And we'll leave that rig drilling out there for quite a while yet, because that intrusion is so big. And we're going to be trying to find another mineralised zone in intrusion there. I've already spoken about Antwerp, so I won't continue with that. But obviously, there's some really good hits there historically, and we need to follow them up. Look, this is one of the interesting things we've found about resource delineation drilling, and that's at Crow. We've actually found, as well as having these really thick mineralised zones at places like Brolga, within Crow, with the closer space drilling, we've actually picked up some really high grade zones. We announced another intersection there last week, but some of the previous intersections were things like 64 metres at 13 grams, including 19 at 42, 17 metres at 13 grams, including 7 at 29, and then 33 metres at just under 5 grams. So it's been really interesting, particularly at Crow, to be able to pick up some of these high grade hits, and some of those hits have also got visible gold. So it's quite exciting for the potential to have some high grade mineralisation feeding into a plant as well. And just talk about the regional upside. I've spoken a little bit really about Hemi here, and to the west at Eagle and Jardine, and then further west at Antwerp. We are currently doing RC drilling at Scooby, but we do have anomalous mineralisation in intrusion at Shaggy, Electronus, and we are picking up sniffs in intrusion around Greater Hemi. We haven't followed any of those air core intersections up yet with RC, but there's definitely a lot of potential in this area that wraps around this granite intrusion in the Greater Hemi area, and also along these shear zones. So look, there's plenty of upside here yet. We haven't covered this area with air core drilling to this point in time. So it's just giving people an indication that there's a lot more to be found immediately around Hemi. But
it also shows the scale of it, because you think Hemi's big enough, and when you zone in on Hemi and have a look at the size of the structure and what you're finding there, that's big enough in of itself.
Yeah, that's right.
When you pull out and have a look at this, there's so much more upside. Yeah,
so Hemi itself in here is about 2.5 by 2.5, and then when you take into account Jardine and Eagle, that's nearly another kilometre. Antwerp's another kilometre, and then you've got 2 or 3 kilometres out to Scooby. So this plan's probably showing a 20 kilometre strike, which is really yet to be fully tested with air core. So on top of that, that's the area that we're looking at in here, the Greater Hemi area. On top of that, we've either got intrusion targets that we picked up from geophysics, or actual intrusion targets that we've confirmed with geochemistry in places out here to the west, like Charity Well, Gemus. These are all known to be intrusions, and we need to follow those up with air core and RC drilling. But also along the belt here, along these shear zones, We've also got known intrusions at places like Calvert, and we're currently undertaking air core drilling there. So, there's a lot of potential outside of Hemi and Greater Hemi all the way along this this belt, this 150 kilometres of tenement package that we've got. Also worth pointing out that on top of the resource that we come out with at Hemi in mid-year, we've also got just over 2 million ounces of resources across the deposits along the belt, including Taurana, Malina, Withnell, Wingina, and so forth. Those deposits will contribute positively to any production facility that is located at Hemi. So those resources will convert. Okay, on to project studies. We're well advanced with a lot of studies at the moment that are just outside of exploration and resource definition. So we're doing environmental baseline studies, hydrogeology, geotechnical studies, and obviously metallurgical test work. We've had excellent recoveries of the mineralisation through a circuit that comprises flotation followed by oxidation, as well as using cyanide leach for flotation tailings, and also mineralisation that we come across that's oxide and or free milling. And those recoveries are in the mid-90s. So that's excellent. That was one of the risks that had been pointed out with the project, maybe about 15 months ago, but I think we've put that one to bed now. And what's really positive about the test work we're doing is that we can get very high recoveries into a gold concentrate through flotation ahead of oxidation. And so what that means is that the oxidation circuit's going to be something of the order of 15 times smaller than the front end of the plant. So that's really good. We're assessing 3 different styles of oxidation, pressure oxidation, albion, and biological oxidation. And all 3 of those work. And it's just going to get down to further test work and then an economic trade-off. So the focus for 2021 is, as we've been talking about, come up with a high-quality maiden resource at Hemi mid-year. Just noting all of the zones remain open and there's plenty of upside. So whatever that number is, we certainly don't want people to have that stuck in their minds. There will be more at Hemi and Greater Hemi. We're currently following up targets with RC drilling in the Greater Hemi region. Regionally, we've got an air core rig out there at the moment drilling shear hosted targets as well as intrusion targets around Calvert. And in terms of development studies, we're very well advanced for the stage of this project in terms of all of the studies I mentioned before, and we'll continue with them. And sometime after we come out with the maiden resource mid-year, we'll also give people an idea of the production potential that we've been able to confirm at Hemi, at least as a starting point. And just summarising, we will demonstrate that Hemi's a tier 1 scale resource and a tier 1 scale production scenario. It is in a tier 1 jurisdiction. We believe we'll be able to continue to grow the resource base around Hemi and across the whole Malina Gold Project for less than $220 an ounce. Because of the scale of the mineralisation, because of its potential low cost, we are getting a very high value per ounce in terms of the resource base that people have been discussing and that we've been indicating to people ourselves. So, it's a really good business to be in. We're finding gold at less than $20 an ounce, and we're being valued at around $200 to $250 an ounce. At the same time, we're going to build on our organisational capability, and that's because our ultimate objective is to be a tier 1 gold producer ourselves at Hemi. The reason for that is we believe that will give current shareholders the greatest bang for buck and the greatest value per share.
Glenn, that was a fantastic presentation, and you are ever the pro because you are bang on time. People can ask questions. Ladies and gentlemen, if you want to ask questions, come to the Zoom networking at the end of today. This is a massive, and I am a shareholder. I think it's a great story. Plenty of cash on hand. I wanted to ask you, but maybe we can ask you this at the end of the day. What are you going to use some of that cash for? But we are out of time for the moment. Glenn Jardine, Managing Director, De Grey Mining, thanks for joining us today at the Virtual Gold Conference.
Yeah, thanks, Kerry, and thanks for the opportunity.
ABC Bullion, the Australian bullion company. Trading since 1972, ABC Bullion is Australia's largest independent bullion dealer and precious metals depository. Fully insured and verified by independent audit. ABC Bullion offers a range of proprietary investment products and storage solutions and Australia's first gold and silver accumulation plan. ABC Bullion.